15th chapter of Luke, and we want to begin at verse 21, very familiar passage of Scripture. As a matter of fact, if you were here at Sunday school on March 17th, we would have covered this lesson, but it has resonated with me as we talk about Jesus' model of ministry. Did I get that right, Pastor? Jesus' model of ministry. We're going to get into it in just a minute. When you have it, when you have that particular passage, just say, I have the word. Here's how it reads. I'm reading from the English Standard Version, and it reads on this wise, and the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they begin to celebrate. Verse 25, now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat, that I may celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. If I could, just for the next few minutes of our time together, I want to talk to us from the thought, the right kind of homecoming. The right kind of homecoming. As I said, Pastor has been preaching on Jesus's method of ministry. Jesus's method of ministry, and when we consider Jesus's method of ministry, we begin to consider the fact that Jesus's method of ministry was different from anything that has ever come to this earth. If we would be honest with you, to sum it up, we would bring in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Jesus's method of ministry honestly was a departure from the conformation to the world system. And when you begin to follow Jesus's method, let's move away from ministry for a minute. But when you begin to follow Jesus' method for living, it has a way of transforming you before your eyes. How do you know? How do you know? We talked about in Sunday school these fishermen who were called to follow Jesus in Matthew chapter 14, chapter 15. But when we find them in Acts, they are preaching and healing people. Jesus's method of ministry, his method of living, if you will ever embrace it, will change your life. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. In other words, Jesus has a way of taking your normal, giving you a new normal, and people will look at you and think that you're abnormal. How do you know, Elder Walton? Peter has been around Jesus for so long that when they find Peter and they're trying to pick Peter out and say he's been with Jesus, Peter has been with Jesus so long that his speech gives him away. Even though he's tried to hide out, and there are some of us who have tried to hide out in years past. You trying to do like the world does, but every time the world sees you, all they see is Jesus. He has a way of transforming you. But at some point in our lives, because we have had the privilege of Jesus, we feel like we are entitled to Jesus. Lord have mercy. At some point, you feel like you're entitled to something. What is entitlement? Entitlement means simply this: when you walk into a room, you think you deserve whatever it is you see in the room just because you deserve it. Let me explain it like this. Entitlement comes about because of privilege. You have been extended a privilege on many occasions. And because you have been extended that privilege on many occasions, you have become conditioned to getting that kind of treatment. And so because you have become conditioned to getting that kind of treatment, when you don't get what you believe you're entitled to, now you begin acting out as if you deserve what you think you're entitled to. Okay, y'all looking at me with that Calvary look. Let me move back. Most of us in this building, a lot of us have children, right? There are some times that for the interest of time and to save your energy, but rather than going home and cooking, you will stop back by McDonald's. And if you keep doing that enough, your children will become privileged. They have the privilege of eating out, yeah? They have the privilege of eating out, and they have the privilege of eating out often. But when you decide to cook, let's just say you come in, you cook a little fried chicken, got some collard greens, macaroni and cheese, you just feeling yourself, you got some baked potatoes, and now you sit down at the table, your children will have the unmitigated gall to say, Mama, Daddy, I don't want this. I want McDonald's. And in your mind, and it comes out of your mouth, do you have McDonald's money? You're going to sit here and eat what I have given you. But I just said that to illustrate to you how privilege will turn into entitlement very, very quickly. And so many of us, in some way, shape, form, or fashion have been privileged. All of us have been privileged to God's grace. Amen. We've been privileged to God's mercy. Yeah? Come on, talk back to me. You've been privileged. You've been privileged to God's unmerited favor. That you didn't deserve to have your job because you come late and you leave early, but they still give you a job and you done got a raise. You've been privileged. But there's sometimes, here's the tension, you can be so privileged that you become entitled. If you're not careful, you will process through your life with a spirit of entitlement. And for most of us, it's not even evident. We've become so conditioned to it that we just live life. We just live it. I'm living my best life. We just living life. Amen. We just living life. But if you start to drill down and take a closer look at, you can start to see entitlement play and rear its ugly heads in our lives. Let's go back to the job. Let's go back to the job, because now you feel like because you've been on the job, you've had the privilege of being on the job for 15 years now. You haven't done much. You've done just enough to get by. But because you've had the privilege on being on the job for 15 years, when another position opens up, you feel like I'm entitled to it. I deserve to be there. So you put your hat in the ring, and when you don't get what you think you deserve, what do you start doing? Not you, I'm just talking about your neighbor. What do we start doing? We start, now when you don't get the job that you think you deserve, then you start talking bad about the person that got the job. You start disrespecting them. Not understanding that they came to work on time, they stayed their whole 8 hours. Sometimes they worked overtime and picked up your slack. But because you feel entitled, you feel like, Well, she messed up yesterday. I know she come in on time. Sometimes I just gotta, I hit my snooze button. I need an extra couple of minutes. But now you want to disrespect what they have done to get the promotion. And here it is. Our gratefulness starts to diminish when we become entitled. That you don't show up to work anymore. Them first 3 months, that's the honeymoon phase. You show up to work 15 minutes early. Then it starts to be 10 minutes. Then it's 5 minutes. Then once you've learned the landscape, depending on what your job is, you may get there on time maybe once a month. Because your gratefulness has diminished because you feel like you're entitled. Yeah. Our respect level diminishes because you feel like you're entitled. They've given you the privilege, but you feel as if you're entitled. And so if you're not careful, your compassion can be diminished because you feel like you're entitled. Somebody should you should respect me, but I ain't got to respect you. You should talk to me like you got good sense, but I ain't got to talk to you like you got good sense. Your empathy is at an all-time low when you feel entitled. And then this is the issue that we come to the text. When we get to the text this morning, the text actually starts at verse 1. But for the sake of time, I didn't want to go all the way through and read all of that. When you have, it's in your Bible. It's on your Bible app. You can go back to it, grab the CD. You can go back to it and read through it. Verse 1 starts a conversation. Because Jesus is having to have a conversation with the Pharisees. And the reason why is because Jesus is with tax collectors and sinners. And Jesus is drawing them to himself. I'm going somewhere, y'all just track with me. Jesus is drawing them to himself, and the Pharisees and the scribes are talking about Jesus' method of ministry. They're talking because they feel a certain sense of entitlement. They've got a certain sense of entitlement. And so he is talking, he hears them grumble about this man receives sinners and eats with them. And verse 3 of that text says, so he told them this parable. Now, here's the thing. The prodigal son, or I like to call it the wayward son and the loving father. I just added to your title, the wayward son and the loving father. This is actually a third parable in a series of 3 that Jesus is teaching. He's got a particular point. First parable he teaches is the parable of the lost sheep. Y'all heard it. He's got 100 sheep. One of them gets lost. He leaves the 99 to go get the one sheep. And when he comes back from finding the one sheep, he gets the people that are around him to rejoice with him. The next parable is the parable of the lost coin. Lady loses a coin that is significant and important to her. She tears up the house looking for the coin, and when she finds the coin, she invites those who are around her to rejoice because she's found the coin. The third one is the parable of the wayward son and the loving father, or what we know as the prodigal son. This is where we see entitlement rear its ugly head. Because the son has the unmitigated goal to go to his father and tell his father, Dad, I've been thinking about it. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and disperse my inheritance to me. Now, y'all's like, well, that's not too bad. At least he went and talked to his daddy. You do realize that inheritance is not due to anybody until there has been a death in the family. Amen. So what he is telling the father is, I wish you were dead. He's disrespectful. He's disrespectful. But here's what the father does that throws me off. The father gives him the inheritance. I want to take a parenthetical pause right here and say, be careful when God gives you what you want. When God has been keeping you away from what it is that you want and he finally gives it to you, be careful. Because if you have not learned the lesson, you might end up like the wayward son. So the father, let me get back on track. The father gives him what he wants. The son takes the inheritance and he blows it. Can I contextualize it for you? He's gone to the club. He's been making it rain. He done bought cars. He got clothes. He's got different women coming in and out of his house. He's got houses and cars and all kinds of foolishness. But after a while, that money dries up. King James Version calls it riotous living. He's having a ball. YOLO. You only live once. But YOLO left him bankrupt. And when he is bankrupt, listen to this. This is a good Jewish boy. He is so bankrupt that he has to go and work at a pig farm. Y'all missed it, went over your head. He's a good Jewish boy. Jews don't eat pig. They don't like the swine. The swine is not fine. Bacon and all of that other stuff, they ain't trying to do that. And when he works for a pig farmer, he is now at the lowest of low. If that is not enough, he looks at the pig's food, y'all, and he says, you know what? That don't look too bad right about now. Can I take another parenthetical pause? Listen, don't be so desperate, even in destitute moments, that the lowest of low starts to look like the best of the best. Be selective, even in hard moments, be selective about what you see as better and best. Let me get back on task. So here it is. He is sitting in the pig pen, and the text says, and he comes to himself. Lord have mercy. Missed it, went over your head. Let me tell you. He is sitting in a pig pen. And the text says, Jesus says, and when he came to himself. There are often times, I just got to talk about the younger son real quick. There are often times that if you are not careful, you will leave yourself and God has to let you come to yourself. That's why I said be careful when God gives you what you want. Because it may be the revelation that God was trying to get to you, he can only give to you by the experience in a pig pen. I got to move on because we got to get to the homecoming. So the son concocts this mission. He says, listen, I'm tripping. I'm sitting in a pig pen and my father's servants are eating good meals. Now, I know I forfeited my sonship. Got it. I'm back to myself now. I was stupid. I was too ignorant to know that I was being arrogant. Got it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my father and we're going to have a conversation. And this is what I'll say. Daddy, I messed up. And not only did I mess up, I know that I don't deserve to be a son again. Just make me a servant. Lord have mercy. Y'all don't know when to shout. Just make me a servant. Just you ain't got to call me son. Just pull me in the house and let me serve you again. You ain't got to give me another inheritance. Just pull me in the house and get me out this pig pen. Lord have mercy. And this is what the father does. Now, this is what the son does. He's got this plan in his mind. The father, meanwhile, every day is going out to see where the son is. Every day he's going out to see where the son is. When the son finally shows up, Bible says that the man runs out to his son. Now, that doesn't mean anything to us in our 21st century. But a man that ran when you got servants to run for you was less than a man in that context. And so him running suggests that he was emotional about seeing a son that he thought that he lost. And so they have their conversation. The boy spits his game and says, listen, Dad, I messed up. Just make me a servant. The daddy ignores him and said, boy, get this boy my ring, get him my robe, and get him my shoes. Kill the fatted calf because we about to eat. Here's what I want to get to, and here's where our takeaways come from. The elder brother. Yes, yes. The elder brother is the brother that's getting ready to mess up homecoming. You know why he messes up a homecoming? Because he feels entitled. Yes, yes. He's got the privilege, he's had the privilege of the Father's presence. And now he feels entitled to the Father's celebration. But what do you mean? Watch what he says. He says, Daddy, this boy that went out and he been playing with prostitutes. This is the text. I'm just telling you what the text says. He been playing with prostitutes and you gonna have a party for him? Now, I've been at the house all this time, working for you. And you're going to have a party for him because he'd been out playing with prostitutes. I got a problem. Here's the first thing, that if we're going to make sure we got the right kind of homecoming, you've got to remember, first of all, that he gave you what you did not deserve. I know it seems common. He gave you what you did not deserve. What do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, so the elder brother, I don't know if you paid attention to it. Let me show it to you in the text. He says something that is really key. In verse 11, it says, there was a man who had 2 sons. I want to go to verse 14. And the younger of them said to the father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. What do you mean, Walton? What are you trying to say? The elder son got an inheritance just like the younger son. And he got I was getting to that, Pastor. Preach it for me. He got a double portion. In other words, he got 2/3 while his brother got 1/3. He got what he didn't deserve. Lord have mercy. What are you trying to get at? If we're going to have the right kind of homecoming, and if we're going to use Jesus' method of ministry, there are going to be people that come in, and we've got to make sure that when they come in, that we don't look at them cross-eyed. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Lord have mercy. Because his method works. So we've got to prepare our hearts and our minds for his method working. And one of the first things that happens when you get new people into an established place is you start looking at them crazy. Because you've been out doing what I've been serving the church for 45 years. I've been here for 45 years and I'll be doggone if you, no. Don't be the elder brother. Because guess what? You got the opportunity just like they did. Lord have mercy. And if the truth be told, you got more of an opportunity than they did. What do you mean? Because see, y'all back in the day when y'all was doing what y'all was doing, y'all didn't have social media. So if it got out, it just happened to get out. Yeah, but it's recorded nowadays on, you got 2/3 of an inheritance. You got all kinds of grace. So when these young folk come in, when these older folk who's had harder lives come in, you can't look at them cross-eyed. Because you got what you didn't deserve as well. Amen. Look at your neighbor and say, you got an inheritance. Yeah, you got an inheritance. Watch this. Watch. He is angry because he is dealing with his own feeling of entitlement. Yes. Again, and we do this in church, y'all. We do this. You feel like you entitled because I've been here 75 years. I've been serving the Lord a long time, and I ain't got tired yet. We do that. And there are people who pop in and out, and when they pop in and out, we look at them crazy as if you don't deserve to pop in and out. And if the truth be told, you just was here. Some of the same stuff that he was dealing with, you were dealing with. You just stayed, and you dealt with it in your own heart. You didn't have the courage to leave out. And maybe, just maybe, you're mad at the younger brother because he left out to get himself together. I don't know. Throw that out there, let you kick it around. So the truth of the matter is, he's just as guilty as his younger brother. Because when he accepted the double portions, Sister Kathy, he was saying just what his little brother was saying. I'm so glad you're dead while you're alive. I'm still in the house, but I benefit from what should be mine when you were dead. See, we can be very, very polite, but still have the same sentiment. Lord have mercy, I got to move on. So that's the takeaway number one. I'm going to my seat in just a minute. Takeaway number two is this. Remember that he didn't give you what you did deserve. Because here's the truth. When both of those boys got that inheritance, he should have cut them off. When they got what they wanted, he should have cut them off. The boy should have been kicked out of the house, and the younger brother should have never been able to come home. Lord have mercy. Because his acceptance of the portion was saying, Daddy, I wish you were dead. They both by right should have been cut off from the father. What does that mean, Elder Walton? We all by right, whether they knew or we old, should have been cut off by the father. Thank God for grace. Listen, D, help me preach it. Thank God for grace, because not only did he give me what I didn't deserve, that's mercy. Mercy is when he didn't give me what I deserved. He should have cut them off, but the Father is so loving that he can let a son with an issue in his heart work in his house while he waits on the son who was honest with his issue and went and lived a riotous life. He can love them both the same. What are you trying to say, Elder Walton? When these people come off the street, we've got to remember, when these people come to our house and we employ Jesus' method of ministry, we've got to remember not only did he give us what we didn't deserve, that's grace, but he also gives us what we don't deserve. I didn't say that right. He didn't give us what we did deserve. That's what I meant to say. That's mercy. In other words, you got mercy and grace. Why don't you give them mercy and grace? Because you got mercy and grace. We have to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. And I don't know, this message was on my heart so heavy, so I don't know what God is getting ready to do in the life of Groveland, but I am anticipating and I am expecting something great from God, but God has to prepare us before he unleashes what he's about to give us. So we've got to have the right kind of homecoming. Remember, he did not give you what you deserve. He gave you what you didn't deserve. Here's my last thing, and I'm going to my seat. Your remembrance, then, should lead to your rejoicing. That every time we come together, it ought to be a celebration. I don't know if you noticed it in the text, but the Bible says while the elder brother was working, he heard what was happening at the house. People ought to be able to hear what's happening at the house when they walk up on the yard. I'm just saying, if you've been coming to Bible study this last month in March, we've been talking about praise. And here's one of the things that in my studies I learned about praise, that praise is never quiet. And I don't know how we lose it from the club to the church. But it's really interesting that in the club, they can't sit you down. But in the church, you've learned how to be dignified and cross your legs with your little hat. that when they come here, there ought to be rejoicing. Because at one point, I was lost. Lord have mercy. I could celebrate right there. At one point, I was the wayward son. And at some point, I've been the other brother. I've been, they say it like this in the low country of South Carolina. I've been come here and I've been here. But that I've been in the house mad because new folk been coming in. But I've been the new folk coming in happy because I'm just in the house. And at some point, y'all, we got to get to a place of rejoicing. I'm rejoicing, number one, because I once was lost, but now I'm found. But now I'm rejoicing now because I see others who once were lost, and now they're found, and we're all coming to be one happy family. Amen. If we're going, and I'm going in my seat on this, if we are going to be and have the right kind of homecoming, first of all, you got to remember. Here's two things. Remember that he gave you what you didn't deserve. He gave you grace, y'all. It's through grace. It's by faith through grace. Not that any man should boast. You can't brag because you were supposed to be gone just like I was. But thanks be to God, I'm still here. And it's by the grace of God. Here's the second thing we got to remember as a takeaway. Remember that he didn't give you what you did deserve. What did I deserve, Elder Walton? You deserve to be cut off. You were the spawn of Satan. Because you follow Satan. Ephesians chapter 2, for your reference. You were following Satan and the course of his world, of this world. And so you should have been cut off. But God, who is rich in mercy, Lord have mercy, wherewith he loved us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. Amen. He didn't give you what you did deserve. If you can remember those two things, then every time you hit the doors, every time you get in your car, every time you wake up in the morning, you ought to be rejoicing. And when you remember that you didn't get what you deserve, remember that he gave you what you didn't deserve, it ought to cause rejoicing. And that, brothers and sisters, is the right kind of homecoming. Amen. Listen, there may be someone in the room who can identify with the younger brother. You have come to your senses. You realize that you were in a pig pen, but you've made your way home.